right. 4:33, I'd like to call the meeting of the Whitman Middle School Building Committee to order. As we start every meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance, could you please rise and join me? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next on the agenda, I'd just like to announce that the meeting's being video recorded and audio recorded for use at a future date and will be broadcast on WHCA. So everyone's aware of that. Public comment. Is there anyone here to speak publicly? I guess not. Mr. Carroll, OPM update.
So the OPM update is going to be pretty quick tonight. I think the majority of the evening is going to be spent with the design team giving us their update, but we have our typical OPM monthly reports. As you see here, we have this date at the end of the month last month, so it's basically the beginning of the month this month. We're coming up on another report which will be submitted about 10 days from now, but here's where we're at right now. As of this report, we hadn't gotten the signed contracts back yet and it entered into the system, so they're still showing the old contract values. If you remember at the last meeting, we had the amendments for Colliers and for AI3 updated, but that's not reflected here. It will be reflected on next month's report.
Okay, so if we can jump around a little bit, if nobody minds, and sort of couple that with payment invoices, I think that might be proper and prudent. In the future, I will make sure that we have that within that area. But these have been submitted to Mr. Stanbrook.
Yes, sir.
He's our Director of Business, our MCPPO as well. So I'd just like his advice on these invoices, and if everything looks proper and he's authorized them for payment, I would entertain a motion that we pay the invoices as presented. Mr. Stanbrook.
They look proper, and I would authorize them to be paid.
Okay.
I would recommend that they be paid.
Okay, so I would be looking for a motion to approve the invoices as presented.
So
Okay. So we have Beth and George both with a first and Brandon with a second. So, yes, discussion.
yes, I just wanted to know about the borrowing that's coming up. Last time we talked about a $6 million ban. Is that happening? Is that the amount? Is that happening soon?
Our treasurer, David Leary, is working on it, and I'm not sure what the borrowing update is, but it may be less than that, depending on whether or not we can get our FY22 audited.
And so some of these being paid by the ban, or?
Right now, we've paid it out of our cash. We don't have a anticipation of inflation,
Oh, okay.
so we haven't borrowed.
So there's enough to pay it?
Yes.
Okay.
Any further discussion or questions?
I have a few questions about the specific bills, but I think I'll take it up with Mike privately as opposed to delaying the discussion.
Okay, that's fair. All right, so we have a motion and a second on the floor. We'd be looking at a roll call vote. We have Mr. Resson on the phone. George?
And I'm on the phone too, but I can't hear very well.
Okay, is that
That was
Chris.
Mr. Scriven? Okay.
yes for me.
George is yes?
Yes.
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 Jeff? You weren't here for this is payment of invoices. that we owe.
Yes, let's pay it.
Mr. Scriven?
Yes.
And Mr. Resson?
Yes.
Okay, so it is unanimous to pay the invoices. Back to you, Mr. Carroll.
All right, thank
Anything
you.
else?
Next, I was going to jump into schedules, take a look at the overall larger picture schedule. I think as we get into the design discussion, we'll get into a little bit more of the detail. But currently, I've put this little yellow box for the month of February to kind of show us where we're at here. We've got the design development, which is ongoing. You can see that we're just starting to touch the cost estimate box because the cost estimate documents went out. So we'll be looking towards the meeting next month to talk about the cost estimates, and we'll be looking to do a submission to the MSBA come the beginning of April, basically. So
Okay.
just over a month from now. From there, we go into the 60% construction documents and kind of repeat that process with estimates and submissions, and then final 90% for going out to bid basically next spring.
And that's our opportunity to perhaps tweak something or try and tweak back some monies or whatever. Use one coat of paint instead of two, you know, not saying that that's what we're doing, but just as a, you know, way of stating something.
That's correct. So what we do is at the end of every cost estimate, whether we're on budget or not, we're going to go through what we call a value management or value engineering process. So if we're on budget or under budget, we're still going to review those, because until we get to that point where we're buying it out with the contractor, bidding the job, we don't know where the final number is. So we're always going to have that as a list of items that we can review and we can use, even if we're on budget. If we're over budget, certainly we're going to be taking a harder look at that. But we've got a team that's been able to manage to that budget, and that's what we're going to continue to do.
Great. Any questions for Mr. Carroll?
Just a quick question on the submissions to the MSBA. Is it the MSBA's position that they review the submission and then give us feedback as they have in every other document, plus the documents we've sent them?
That's right. If you look at the MSBA protocols, technically they say you submit, and then we're supposed to go on hiatus for 5 weeks until we get responses back. In reality, that's not very practical. So what we typically do is the design team will move into that next phase of the work. They continue working through, because time is of the essence, right? We don't want to lose that time. We will be getting comments back from them. We will review some of those with you folks and get answers from you. Some of them will come from our team, some of them will come from the design team, and ultimately we will be submitting a formal response back to all their questions. I will tell you, a lot of the times the answers at DD are, this will be addressed at 60%, this will be addressed at, because they're looking for something that just hasn't been developed fully yet, and so they want to make sure that we're going to develop that. But what we do is we acknowledge that it needs to be done, and it will be done at the next level.
All right, anything further on the OPM report?
Happy to answer any other questions, but really that's all I had for tonight as far as the OPM report. Okay. The next item we had was the recap of the January focus and then the design team.
Okay. Are you recapping January,
I think,
or is that the design team?
so I'm going to slide out here and let Julie slide in.
Yeah. Well, do we need a microphone over there? So the folks, is there one there? So that people can hear, they're on the phone?
Oh, over the phone.
So to come out of that speaker, basically.
Jason Cook, ladies and gentlemen, one of our tech guys, is going to make sure everybody can hear. Thank you, Jason.
You're welcome.
I'll also do my best to speak up.
I didn't have to say it,
Yeah.
huh?
Fred, can you just pause before we're getting set up? And can I announce that we made a hire? Elizabeth Dagnall is our website designer, since we took it out of the Collier's contract.
Okay.
Elizabeth, we posted. Elizabeth met with George and I, and she's on board to take care of the website for the project to completion.
Nice. So I'm sure it'll get done nicely and artistically.
So thank you.
So
Thank you.
definitely thank you.
Artistically isn't promised, but expediently and,
Basically, I think what we're looking to do is make sure everything is updated.
Yes.
That the meetings, minutes are there of all the meetings. The videos are there as they get published from WHCA. Just as much involvement with the public. I believe we're going to, within the designer's report, discuss having a public forum at the middle school, similar to what we've had in the past, more informational, but just to keep the public aware as to what's going on. I do know, and Mike, we might as well address this real quickly. The middle school fields, it was brought to my attention yesterday afternoon. The middle school fields had been dug up, and people were all upset and they were worried because what are you going to do? Soccer people are up in arms. It was planned for. George said he had toured the property today. I drove by, I really didn't see much, at least from the road there. But whatever was the test borings that were done, they were filled and they'll be properly patched, etc. It's part of the project itself. So, you know, soccer will be able to go on as we've stated and laid out in our timeline. So there's not going to be any interruption. But if we take it as a learning experience and have greater communication with the town and the recreation department, those folks that do, that are in charge of the fields after school hours and on the weekends, I think that's the best way. I know Brandon spends a ton of time out there in those fields. So, you know, between you and you folks being a conduit to Mary Beth, perhaps, and I don't mean to put more on your plate, you know, and the rec director, you know, just so people know, so when they get the angry pictures and emails, they can be responded to very nicely and easily, because I think that people didn't need to be up in arms. It could have just been a nice response. Nope, it's all planned for, they'll be repaired. Don't worry about it. It's part of what we have to do as far as making sure wet ground gets built upon properly, etc. And we did promise the public we'd make sure that the wet ground was promised to be mitigated properly. So, does that sound like a good action plan moving forward for everyone? Sure. So, okay, great. So we're all in agreement there. Julie, you ready?
Great, yeah, if you guys are. So, let's see. Just a brief schedule overview to build upon what Mr. Carroll has presented. Just as he pointed out, we're about midway through design development, which, as a reminder, is definitely just as it sounds. We're continuing to develop the design, putting more consideration into materials and constructability per space. And you can see that March is designated for that cost estimating exercise, so they need about 3 to 4 weeks to be able to price our documents for us to come back at the end of the month and deliver on how that's stacking up against the total project budget. Looking at the activities a little bit more closely, you can see that everything is either completed or pending for the most part, or initiated, I should say, for the most part. We're at least continuing to develop our documents as we push towards that design development submission to the MSBA early April. And then many of these items in yellow are working in concert with that cost estimate. So all of these items have been submitted to cost estimators, and additionally, they've been submitted to consultants of ours as a check-in on how the design is performing acoustically, or per code, or ADA, or energy. And so that's for us, is at least making sure that the design is meeting both standards, but also continuing to pursue the needs of Whitman. Phase 2 investigations, we had mentioned in December that Phase 2 investigations would commence this year, at the beginning of this year. Just as it was just spoken about, the geotechnical Phase 2 has begun. Test pits and borings began last week. Just as it was mentioned, that is scheduled to continue for about 2 to 3 weeks, but all the while anticipating that those would be rehabilitated by the time that sports are in session. And we continue to work with administration on sort of the plan moving forward for those. We have been able to shift a few outside of playing areas just to make the rehab of the fields easier. So we'll continue to keep everyone updated on that and working with Elizabeth moving forward. For the site survey, similarly, there are stakes out in the fields as well. Mostly around the perimeter, they've been identifying the boundary for the site and also starting to get into locating the utilities. So that's always helpful for us, just as, especially for civil engineering, to know where the new building will tie into the existing utilities. Traffic study and wetlands delineation, those will continue to be ongoing sort of on an as-needed basis. So as flags get moved or we need more information, we'll continue to work through those studies. And then scheduled reviews, our civil engineer has set up a meeting with building inspector and Department of Public Works for next month. That's sort of a courtesy review of the project and intro to the project, just to keep everyone involved and on board with that. For the recap of January meetings, so we mentioned also in December that the plan was to return to the middle school for another round of programming meetings with the staff. So much like the previous two, we took, I guess, the AI3 team and our professional team met with each staff specific to a space, so the art teacher and general classroom teachers, music teachers, to better determine their needs in terms of power, fixtures, furniture, equipment. So we're moving a little bit beyond just developing the size and shape of the space. Now it's kind of getting into some of those details. So the graphic up here is at least showing a pair of classrooms with the red indicating comments that we received and constructive feedback from the general ed teachers, for example, like where it made the most sense to locate phones, or any kind of furniture piece that would be helpful to include in the FF&E budget. So we found those to be very productive and helpful, and so we've continued to take that information, and a lot of that is helping to inform the cost estimate set that is in the hands of the cost estimators currently. As a reminder, the committee voted to move forward with an $1,800 per student FF&E budget. The MSBA carries $1,200 per student as reimbursable. And closer to the completion of CDs, we'll be able to actually bring in physical samples of furniture for staff and administration to really test out and see if that aligns with their needs, but also aligns with the budget. So everyone loves some furniture selecting later in the project. And then additionally, in meeting with the staff, we met with members of the Whitman Police and Fire to discuss safety and security around the site and in the building. We also met with representatives from the district's facilities department and technology departments. And so I won't read through all of the topics that were discussed, but these have additionally helped to inform the design and the details of the project to get the most out of this cost estimating exercise. And also each of these parties sort of reaffirmed that the design itself is progressing in a way that is well suited for operations that are currently in the district, and from a safety perspective. And so continuing to carry a lot of their feedback as we move through the process is always really helpful for us. And then a very brief design update. As we've already mentioned, the design development cost estimating submission is a very important milestone, or I guess midway milestone in design development. So with this estimate submission, it's now much more detailed than what was provided in schematic design. So we have a project manual, we have documents not only from the architects, but from all of our engineers, technology, even solar design has an initial layout for that potential ad alternate of the renewable energy. And they've additionally provided written narratives to help inform what is in the scope for each of those professional sets as well. And so we can speak a little bit more about the process moving forward once we have those cost estimates. I have a slide at the end. But tonight we have Ashley Cullion here to present some of the awesome things about the landscape that have been included in the design development set. So we have a series of 3D images. Ashley is a principal at Traverse Landscape Architects, and so we're hoping to have her come up and just walk you through some of the aspects of the site. Ashley was also present for many of the focus group meetings in January, so she can speak to how some of those concepts and ideas were integrated into the site.
Hi, everybody. It's so nice to be here and present where we are in terms of the landscape design. As Julie mentioned, we had some really great focus groups as well as facilities meetings that are starting to help us evolve and hone in on the actual design of some of the outdoor classrooms, the planting, and the landscape areas. So we're really excited in the direction that that's going. And what I get excited about, and I hope you guys do as well, is just when you start to look at this site plan and it becomes really evident in some of the 3Ds, just the percentage of green space versus building and parking is just really a beautiful layout and orientation and geometry for the school. And inherently, it just sets us up for a beautiful entry progression into that area, because the second you drive down that center drive, you're flanked with fields on both sides, trees and sidewalks. And as simple as that is, it's just really beautiful. So just a quick recap, you have your bus drop-off located in the front. That is denoted with that yellow dashed line. The car loop is noted in blue dashed, entry plaza in the front, and then all the fields that will be rehabilitated or relocated are shown in that brighter green. Everything else is just shown in that olive color. And then to the back of the school, we have a dashed line that just denotes the emergency access. Down. Perfect. So what I'll do is narrate some of these 3D images for everybody, and then we can go back to whatever you like to see. What's great about these is that they're good for presentation graphics too, but they really help us understand the scale of some of these areas, you know, things that could be potential issues like planting or, you know, proper usage of materials. So we're definitely open to all of your suggestions. This is a view of the entrance from the car loop. So I think what's nice about this is you can see the close proximity of both the bus and the car, where you have both of these groups dropping off and students are entering into the school together. You also start to get a feel for the landscape islands, which are deliberately left lawn space kind of towards the end, and then they start to have some more plant material just getting closer to the building. But select shade trees where you still have views through, so it's really open. We did get some suggestions and comments on making sure that this is really visible for everybody and really safe feeling. So we're starting to see that here in this first slide. This is starting to look up into the entry plaza south, so you can start seeing the entrance. And also, we're keeping the planting really simple. This is something I think that came out of the maintenance questions, is, you know, keeping the planting really simple, scaled back, focusing on lawn areas, shade trees, and then where we're up close against the building or we really strategically need some foundation plantings for buffer, for sound, that's where we really start to bring in those elements. But you can start to see some of the lawn spaces, bike racks, some of those amenities. This is a bird's eye view of what that looks like. I think spatially, we've started to break up some of those plaza spaces because they can be large. So you'll see we're breaking them up with some islands with shade trees and lawn. But you can also see the benches and how that could really react to those buses dropping off and those kids having great places to walk underneath the canopy of the building and sit outside the front of the school. This is the landscape design for the small plaza space right outside the auditorium. You'll note it's really simple. It's just a small seat wall with planting behind it that buffers it from that parent drop. But this is just a great place as an outdoor classroom for music, band, and it's just slightly sunken from the rest of the area. This is a view of the emergency drive in the back, and this has been something we've really been discussing with safety, facilities. We are required to have a 20-foot emergency drive, but what we've been pushing for, and I think we've gotten great traction on, is to actually do a 10-foot asphalt paved lane, which acts as just a walkway for the students. On both sides of that, we have reinforced turf, which is totally drivable and plowable for emergency vehicles. But it just gives the illusion that it's just a walkway in the back of the school really connected to the wetlands areas and utilizing that existing vegetation. This is a view of the outdoor classroom in the back. It's fully covered, so a highly flexible, usable space, and it's just programmed with outdoor tables, benches, so this could be moved however you want it to be. You see these outdoor chalkboards, so the benches could be relocated, you could move the tables, you could put them together, but super flexible and could be really used on many different seasons because it's fully covered. This is a view of the courtyard. So this is looking in from that emergency drive. You start to get a feel for some of the outdoor garden spaces and the landscape areas. From our user group meetings, some of the elements that were important were to have a larger outdoor classroom amphitheater space where you could have a bigger class or even 2 classes out there. Have some outdoor vegetable gardens, some seating areas, and then also a wellness space, which you can kind of see right here. This is connected to the wellness classroom. It's a multi-purpose room. So I think we started this design looking at if this could be like almost like a sports court or something like that. That started to not feel totally right to us. But in this new scheme, we're proposing a poured-in-place surfacing. So this would be perfect for any sort of, gym physical activities. It could be perfect for yoga, stretching, anything like that. And it's really connected well with the outdoor doors to that space. This is just another view of that outdoor shade structure, seating all around. You can see how it's a perfect presentation space for a teacher. And then flipping as we start to move around the building, this is a view to the gym space, half basketball court. You can see how we're strategically landscaping and berming some of that lawn space so that it's a great seating area for kids just sitting and watching those activities. This is a view into the gymnasium. And this is really great too because if you picture yourself even at the fields viewing towards the gym, this is a great connection and experience. This is just a bird's eye. You see your loading dock right there in the front, gym entrance to the left, and then you have your half basketball court. Then wrapping all the way around, this is the landscape design for the outdoor dining plaza. Again, really simple spaces, but flexible, lots of outdoor seating, and that bench seat that you saw on the other side of the school. And then this is just an aerial of what the entire view would look like. So I know that was a lot of slides, but are there any questions or any pieces or areas we could flash back to?
Anybody in the committee? Any questions? I did have a couple. The last slide that you just had up of the loading dock, is that going to be able to accommodate an 18-wheeler if there needs to be large deliveries? And you do have 18-wheelers that deliver food, etc.
Yes.
And what is the proximity once the loading dock is to, say, the kitchen or the freezer, etc.?
I'll let Julie speak on the proximity of those pieces, but this is something we really reviewed and actually tweaked after a facilities group meeting. So this has been designed to accommodate an 18-wheeler for access to that loading dock as well as trash removal. We're not showing the dumpsters in this sketch, but it's been designed to accommodate that too.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
and then
they can cut easily, they can cut in there?
Yeah, so can't really see it here, but what they'll do is they'll go around the bus loop for the 18-wheeler, and then they're
Yeah.
going to back up and turn right in at that radius, so they
Okay.
hit the loading dock from behind.
And then as far as the plazas go, have they been structured wide enough to accommodate snow removal?
Yes.
Whether it be a small bucket or, I know we have the large, Caterpillar, but a small bucket or even a, snow blower. So I believe they have the snow blower. So is that, all those things were taken into
They will be
consideration?
taken, yep, they're all taken into account.
Okay.
And also the materials, They're beautiful, but they're simple and they're really highly durable. So we're focusing on things like exposed aggregate, room finished concrete, things that are really going to hold up.
Okay, thank you.
Did you want to touch on the proximity of the?
Sure, yeah, and we've spoken with, in the few times that we've met with staff for programming, that has included the kitchen and custodial staff. So this receiving area is immediately adjacent to custodial and the kitchen. So it's a very short delivery route for getting things into either the dry storage, the freezer, or the cooler.
Yeah, it's all right there.
Anything else you can think of? Beth?
I really like that emergency access drive that you've done. What a great idea. You know, it gives you the illusion that it's just a walking path, but it can be used by anybody. It's excellent.
Thanks, we're excited about that too.
Nice use of the.
Yeah, I can see students just loving that, and it's such a great connection to all the fields around it too.
Yeah, it's great.
That looks great. We talked a lot about it. It's nice to see your thoughts, you know. Looks good.
It's nice
Thank
to
you.
see in 3D for sure.
Yeah. I know.
Okay.
Bring it on home, Julie.
Great, yeah, you guys are easy. So the last slide we have is just next steps and upcoming milestones. It's already been mentioned, but April 4th is really what we're targeting for our submission to the MSBA. And working backward from that and in conjunction with cost estimating to kind of pinpoint when we would want the building committee to meet next. So March 14th is when the cost estimates are due back to the professional team. We'll then set up cost estimate reconciliation, which is when both the designer estimators and the OPM's estimators get on a call and spend a day or two reconciling those costs, so that then when we present to the building committee, those have been vetted and we can see how they stack up against the total project cost that was presented at schematic design. There will be a value engineering exercise if necessary, just as Mike had described prior to that reconciliation. And then for meeting the MSBA deadline, we would, and also giving the committee a chance to have that information, we are recommending March 26th as the meeting to review those cost estimates together, but also approve submission of the DD documents and report to the MSBA. That being said, we would fully intend on sending and sharing the estimates ahead of that meeting, so once we have them reconciled, there would be a few days for the committee to be able to see them, with the hope that by the time we're at that March 26th meeting, there's no hesitation and
And if anyone has any questions, they can directly, without any violation of open meeting laws, they can ask their questions directly either through me as the chair or directly to Mr. Carroll, and go from there. So there's no deliberation involved. But that sounds like a good plan. The 26th of March for our next meeting at 4:30 p.m. Does that sound accommodating for everyone? Okay, so let's set that right now is 3/26. March 26th for our next meeting.
Great, and then similarly, we'll just use the time following that meeting to complete our report. We can also share sort of a draft report ahead of time, much like we have in previous submissions, but the plan would be to get all of that to the MSBA by April 4th, and then just as it was asked, they will have the opportunity to review themselves, and we can respond to comments throughout April, but ultimately moving us into the construction documents phase.
Does anyone else have any questions of Julie or the AEI3 team? Or Mr. Carroll? Okay. We've got our next meeting. We've got our next steps. Anything else?
Only, I had two other quick things. One thing is just kind of dovetailing on what Julie was mentioning, with the meeting on the 26th, we're going to be having the cost estimates in. We're going to be doing that reconciliation. We have the draft reports, and I know there's been discussions in the past about having the final. It'll be as complete as it can be on the 26th, but it will not be the 100% final document at that point. When we do get the final document, we will certainly share that with everybody when it goes to the MSBA. As the estimates come in, we can share that out even prior to getting the value engineering maybe. The value engineering will take an extra day or two, and we can get that out to you as well. So we can try and feed it to you as we get it in and as we can finalize it, if that helps with processing the volume of information.
Sure, and that may change our April schedule a little bit once we get there, if there are things that need to be tweaked, et cetera. So.
All right. The only other thing I wanted to mention, we do have a new member from Collier's here tonight, Harani Kumresh. She's an assistant project manager. She's been helping me out kind of behind the scenes. As we're doing the estimates, we're also having our team review the documents and do some coordination and provide some comments back to the design team. We're actually working with the MSBA's commissioning agent as well, and Harani's kind of helping kind of pull all that together. She's been working a little bit with Lisa in the past on the website, and we'll be working in the very near future to try and work to transition that over. And I just wanted to let everybody know, if you see her name on emails or things like that, she's going to be starting to be a little bit more prominent part of the team as we go into
Wonderful. And I'm going to throw a plug in here real quick. It's www.wmsproject.org. So we can look for updated material and information for the public as well. As we disseminate and discuss different items, those items will end up published on the website for the public to see. I don't know that it's appropriate right now today, but perhaps in our March meeting, we can schedule a public forum similar to what we've had in the past over at the middle school. More informational than anything, but it lets the public know where we're at, what we're doing, and just keep that conduit wide open.
I was just going to ask, what were you thinking, like time-wise? Because we've had them over the summer as well. Are you thinking maybe April, May for the meeting? You know, just so I can start letting people know if they're interested. You know, any thoughts? I know you guys are going to be working hard on this.
What is it? I mean, in my mindset, I'm thinking, you know, something in the spring and something in the fall. You know, for the immediate future. Does that sound proper, Troy or Julie?
Yes, yeah, we would recommend the spring as the next forum.
Spring, and then probably sometime in the fall. I mean, we know you guys got to go back to school.
Yeah.
And get all that out of the way,
Yeah.
so.
So maybe like post-April vacation?
Yeah.
Before, like between April vacation, Memorial Day, somewhere around there?
Yeah,
maybe?
May would probably be appropriate. It
Yeah.
kind of, for us too, it sort of puts us in between milestone deadlines too, so that's easier, obviously, to report on.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I just would like to get people there, so I kind of want to get
no.
the word out a little bit, you know. But yeah, awesome. Thank you.
Definitely. All right. We've gone through our agenda. I don't know that, does anyone else have any questions or anything else to bring before the committee? If not, I will entertain the motion to adjourn. Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Farrow. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, second by Brandon.
Yes.
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 Yes?
Yes.
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 Mr. Scriven?
Yes.
Mr. Essen?
Yes.
We're done. 5:12.